I have been asked in many emails and phone conversations about the 190SL cylinder head, and this information also transfers to cylinder heads of the same era. And I am now going to reveal to you all the secrets of salvaging and rebuilding these aluminum cylinder heads. We're going to be using a 190SL head as an example, but all the secrets will be revealed to you. In reality, they have already been revealed. All you have to do is buy a copy of this book from the International 190SL group and turn to page 83, and all the secrets are right there. Pictures, specifications, everything you need. This is especially important on your valves, how to get the right valve contact surface. Anyway, all that information is in that book. And now I'm going to give it to you in a video form, where you are assuming you have decided you're going to rebuild your engine, or you need to do a valve job, and so you're going to take off your cylinder head. And this is what you see. Obviously this one's stripped of all its valves and related valve train, but this is what you're going to see. And when you're taking the head off, when you're about to take the head off, and so you take the head off, you flip it over without dropping it, obviously. And then in front of you, you have the OMG moment. This is when you see all of the corrosion that has taken place, that has occurred. What used to be solid aluminum is now sponge. And you're thinking, OMG, I have got to spend current pricing $4,000 for a new cylinder head. But you can do that if you want to, or you can salvage your old one. First thing you're going to do is you're going to want to measure the thickness of the head. And see if I can reduce this back. Okay, there we go. Now then, what you're going to need is a micrometer. Ideally, you want a dedicated micrometer. You can try dial calipers and they get pretty close, but actual micrometer is what you're looking for. Original head thickness is 3 inches 346, and it can go down to a minimum of 306 before you have to do any extra shimming of the head gasket. And as you can see here, I think you can see here, we've got sorry about the camera work, but I'm getting glare that I can't actually see the numbers in the, maybe that's what I need to do. Alright, you can see our numbers here. We've got 3, 315, 3, 322, 318, 302. These vary because one of the reasons, and one of the ways rather, that these cylinder heads fail is they lift in the center section right here. And the reason for that is because there's a cooling passage right there that somebody has eliminated on this cylinder head. So we're going to move over to this one. I'll show you what they eliminated. The heads are flopped around, but anyway, that's the cooling passage right there they eliminated. So if you look very closely, you will see how thin it is on either side right here. Very little for the head gasket to grab onto. And what these cylinder heads like to do is lift in the center, either just because the head gasket used back in the 50s and 60s wasn't worth much, or nobody's retorqued the head. Anyway, the end result is the head lifts right here, and this cooling passage leaks water into these combustion chambers. And that's what's happened here. You can see how rough this and pitted this chamber is right here, and you compare that with this one. Not much pitting here, and not much pitting down here. But this is really rough right here, and I don't have no idea why they eliminated that, but they did. It's probably because of the problem with porosity right here and lifting. Anyway, all this can be fixed. Now, one of the things that these people did when they were in here last time is they removed all the water cooling tubes. As you can see over here, we have these tubes that terminate right in here, and that's what these cooling tubes look like. And they're just tapped into the cylinder head, and they are oriented. They got this little tang right here that orients them so that the water is shot off, in this instance, at these valves right here, these seats rather, and this one right here orients like this so that it shoots its water over here. And I'm going to show you something that is not available anywhere in the free world, at least not in this format. So I'm going to show you the actual orientation of these cooling tubes and their part numbers so you can order them. Now here's the overview. When you get down closer, there's the part numbers. And you can see the little tangs. I've kind of made a little oval shaped little tang right there. Only place you'll find this in the free world. So that's a secret I have given you. Now then, let's get back here. Yeah. I know I'm not Cecil B. DeMille, so hold your horses on the complaints. All right, what you're looking at here with these different measurements is somebody came in here and milled this thing without straightening it, and as I say, it lifts in the center so that each end has curved up. This head is now curved like this. This head it warps so that this end comes down, this end comes down, and let's say it stays the same in the center, and it curves down this way, and it curves down that way. And the problem is when you come in here and just put this on the milling machine and mill straight across here, it's going to touch here, and it's going to touch here before it touches here. So what do? You keep cutting here, you keep cutting until it hits the center. And that's how you end up with this end thinner, and this end thinner than in the center. And first thing you want to do is straighten this cylinder head before you mill it. But you need to do that after you've done all your welding. So what you're going to do is you are going to remove the water distributing tubes wherever they are, wherever you need to weld around them. Not everybody needs to do this. You won't know until you pull your head apart. And what you're going to do is you need to weld remove these things, because for instance right here they did not remove this water distributing tube, and the aluminum that these are made out of is not the same composition as the aluminum of the head. And you can see right here they screwed up by welding over. So you obviously can clean this out, but it doesn't give you a good crisp edge around here because this does not like to weld. So you need to take these out, and the same thing within the combustion chambers. If you've got problems in here, then weld them all up. And if the seat rings need to come out, because you can't weld right up next to the seat rings, you're welding aluminum up against steel, and that doesn't work. The TIG welder objects to that. Which, by the way, you're probably going to want to, you will definitely want to preheat the head to about 150, 180 degrees, and then you're going to weld with a 1/8 inch tungsten tip, and you're going to find that you're going to really want to have a welder that's got about 350 amps, but otherwise you can do it with 250, but it'll take a while. And doing the welding around the seat rings is not a problem. Just yank them out. Seat rings are available from Mercedes or people like this, J-Loy. These are commonly available. It's not a big deal. Any machine shop that's able to do this work can handle that for you. Now then, the problem with welding these heads, these are actual sand castings. And the problem with, and also these have been around, they've been subjected to a lot of combustion cycles, so that they've got a lot of impurities in the aluminum to begin with, and then even more so once they've been in service for a long time. And what the problem is with the welding is you're going to get imperfections like this, little bubbles. Now, this is not really a problem unless it happens to be where the gasket is going to seal, and that's at the fire ring. And so what you do is you get your gasket, and notice that this gasket has got the red racing stripe, so it's the latest version. And you're going to get your gasket, and you're going to mark around where the gasket goes. This is the fire ring. This is what actually holds the explosions in place. And you want to make sure that if there's any corrosion underneath here, you're going to weld, and you're going to get solid material. There's a solid weld right there. If you don't, in order to check this, what these people did not do is once they welded it, they did not go back in and say file this, just dress it down a little bit and see how their welding was going. And so they have these pinholes. And that's where it comes in, having the 350 amps of welding power. You're going to really need to heat this aluminum and get it to bubble and get those impurities to actually float up to the surface. So let's say you've got your head is welded, you've dressed it down just by the hand file to make sure everything is as flat as you can get with a hand file. This is all prior to straightening, of course, and you make sure you got no bubbles here. You've done all your machine work excuse me, for making sure you can install your water distributing tubes, and that's a simple matter of making the holes round and tapping these into position. These are not a problem to tap into place. These are not a problem to tap into place. I tell you what's the problem is these little guys right here. They are going to want to collapse on you because they're just little aluminum tubes, and as they drive in, they are going to want to collapse, cant and collapse on you. So I suggest getting multiples of these small ones because you're going to lose them as you do the work, as you try to install those guys. Excuse me. All right, so you now have got this welded. You've got distributing tubes installed, and you are now ready to straighten the head. This is what I do to straighten the heads. We'll go over here to the head straightener, and what I use as a head straightener is a 2.5 inch thick piece of cast iron that I have had milled, and I have drilled for the head bolt pattern. This is actually for 6 cylinders. One side is 280 SL, the other side is 300 SL, and this is the one for the 190 SL. It's slightly smaller. Anyway, you bolt this in place, and depending upon the amount of warpage, let's say 7 thousandths and above, I'll try to straighten it, and 7 to 5 thousandths warpage and below, I will leave it alone. And what you do once you get it bolted down and shimmed on either end as need be is you're going to use this big torch to heat it up to about 150 to 180 degrees, and then let it cool. Then come back in and check to see how much it's straightened out. You just bolt your head down, torque it just like you would normally, and heat it, and come check. And how are you going to check? You are going to use a precision device called a straight edge. And this is made by Starrett. This is an actual precision piece of steel. And right here, I believe right here you can see it says Starrett, just barely. Anyway, what you're going to do is put this on the cylinder head. Get your feeler gauges, and you're going to start trying to see how much warpage you have. This is 6/1000. 6/1000 doesn't go right here, but you want to check every which way you can. And so we go here, and 6/1000 goes underneath here. Because these things do not warp uniformly. They will twist in addition to bow. So you're going to check right here where it likes to warp. Now the problem is, what the reason you want to straighten here, of course, is that so that you don't mill too much off, but also you want to be able to straighten. You're indirectly straightening this surface here, where the valve cover goes, and give you an idea what happens if you don't. Okay, I can rock this. I don't know if you can see that or not. This thing rocks up and down. All right. Well, let's do feeler gauges. Yeah, it's about, what is this, about 19 thousandths. 19 thousandths goes underneath there very easily. This is seriously warped on the top. Fortunately, the valve cover gasket is pretty forgiving, but that does not address the issue of the camshaft. You don't want the head warped and then try to put a straight camshaft on there. So that's another reason for straightening the head. Now then, if you do already have a head that's warped and you can't do much about it, you use these shims available from the 190 SL Club, and these go right here, and you use them in if you need to use 2 or 3 down here, 2 on one end and 1 on the other, whatever variation is going to make it to where when you bolt your camshaft in place, you can take 2 fingers and you can rotate the camshaft. Now then, let's see. Okay, so the next, all right, you've got the head straightened, and now you're going to do the rest of the work, the valve job, or obviously let the machine shop do the valve job. And then if you got a really good valve job, you'll be machine shop, you'll be able to get your combustion chambers swirled so that you have a head that's just about ready for NASCAR. And absolutely stunningly beautiful. Very nice. Now let's discuss installing the, installing the valves. This is tricky. Let me see if I can get this. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move the camera. No, I'll move, yeah. All right, let's get this out of the way. As you can see, I've installed yes, that was my precision measuring tool falling over. As you can see, I've got all these installed. Now, one of the complaints I have about people that do this work is, you notice you got a little gap right here. You've got a bigger gap right here on these cooling tubes. Well, you don't have to have a gap right there. If you haven't welded it complete, put a little epoxy in there, or these tubes are very soft. You can actually tap this tube out here to make it fill in that gap. You do not have to have a gap right there if the welder did not do his job completely. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to show you about a very important secret about installing the valves. Obviously, valve goes in place like this. You get the dirt off of it. Okay. It's a little hard, a little stiff, but we'll take care of that with a reamer. You got your perch, your spring perch down the bottom. Got your coil springs that go on here. And then this is the key. This is critical. This is your valve stem seal right here. And this guy goes up inside here. And you want to make sure that it goes in square. You see already it wanted to go sideways, so you have to work at it to get this thing in square. And now you're going to want to compress the valve springs to the point where you can get your keepers on here. And what you've got is a very sharp machined edge right here. And what it wants to do, it wants to grab this rubber stem seal, which still isn't even in there straight. I'll give you an idea. This is not rocket science, people, but you have to pay attention to these things. Look at that, still won't go in straight. All right. This is a machined edge right here. I believe Mercedes got away from that edge later on, but this is a very sharp edge in terms of the rubber O-ring right here. And what you're going to want to do is push it down there, and what that sharp edge want to do is chew this O-ring, your valve stem seal up. And how do you prevent that? You put a condom on your valve stem. These come too long. What you need to do is chop it off, cut it off to about right below the groove for the keepers, and then this goes on, and with luck this is going to slide through the rubber O-ring, the valve stem seal, and enable you to assemble everything. And what you want to do is be very careful making sure that this valve stem is centered in this hole, because even getting off a little bit like that is going to chew up the stem seal. And to give you an example, these are what's left of the stem of the little condoms that I used to assemble this head. I'm going to have to use my fourth. This is 1, 2, 3, and here's my fourth one I'm going to have to use to assemble the head. So if you get valve stems seals from anybody, darn sure make sure you get at least, I'd say, 4 little condoms from them. Otherwise you're going to end up ruining your valve stem seals and just, you know, wasting all your time. I'm trying to think what else I need to mention. I'm not going to disable comments. I would like lots of comments. If you have a better idea or a different way of doing things that you think you can improve on, amplify on, comment on, critique, or compliment on, please do. I'm going to assume we're going to be sharing information. I want this to be available to everybody so that we can keep these cylinder heads going for another 50 or 60 years. I know there's something else I'm missing. I'm trying to think what it is. We covered welding, valve job. You're going to want to do a three-angled valve job. I always like to lap the valve seals. trying to think what else. Milling. Oh, that's right. If you mill, if the head is too thin, all right. For instance, this head right here, I told you it goes. The minimum is 3 inches, 302 for the minimum. Well, this head is right at the minimum in terms of thickness, 3 inches, 305. So I'm going to use the steel head shim from the 190 SL Club. Oh yes, I know it. I know it's going to. Okay, I know it's going to. Whatever the material, the amount of material you remove from the cylinder head, or the actual, when you end up with the thickness. All right, when you end up with the thickness, final thickness after it's been milled and everything's ready to go, you're then going to want to get your head shims, and what you're going to do is try to get the original head thickness back up to 3 inches, 346. So you will calculate the head thickness. You will then, let's go over here, calculate your head thickness. You then install, measure the thickness of these. I think they're 15 thousandths, and then you'll install these until this added to this equals 3 inches, 346, or very close to it. And the reason for that is you want to maintain the factory distance between the camshaft and the crankshaft, and that affects your timing and your timing chain stretch. Yes, I knew there's something else vitally important to remember to mention to you. This valve is so far below the parting surface you don't have to worry about it. This valve, the intake, is very close to the parting surface, and what also is very close to the parting surface is the piston coming up to meet it. And if you are off one tooth on your timing chain, or you don't have the proper depth of the valve below the parting surface, this valve and your piston are going to meet, and they are not going to be happy about it. And what you want to do is make sure that the intake valves are at least 60 thousandths below the parting surface right here. And the way you're going to figure that out is with your depth micrometer, or the machine shop is going to figure that out with the depth micrometer. And all you do is take this, run it down here, and measure how deep this is below the parting surface. Vitally important, vitally critical. Here's another one of my condoms that got chewed up. The reason I was mentioning going very slow when you're installing the valve through the seal here and through the condom, that even the condom will get torn up on the valve stem seal. The drag between the plastic and the rubber is enough to disintegrate these little plastic, these little guys right here. Here's one that's almost intact, but you can see it started to unravel. This one actually lasted like about 4 or 5 valves, and the others were just 1 valve apiece. Oh, here's another pet peeve of mine: removing this fitting right here. You can see the fitting over here. All right, this is a 2-part fitting. This part right here is a jam nut. It holds the water outlet in place so you can get the correct angle of dangle for your hooking up your hose. This part right here with its aluminum seal ring is what holds the whole assembly in place. And you just can't go wrenching this out of here and hope that it comes out without any trouble. That's a real big problem, because you got steel corroded right next to, or right up against aluminum, and you get your electrolysis and your corrosion. And I don't know if you can see it or not in here, but whoever's in here last just about stripped the threads out of this thing, and that's a good way to ruin a cylinder head. We're going to end up gluing this one back in place. That's also a good shot of the cooling tubes inside there. Anyway, this removing this fitting, if that fitting doesn't come out peacefully, what you're going to do is you're going to buy a new fitting. You're going to buy a whole new assembly. And what you're going to do is undo this. You'll cut your cut this off right here, cut the neck off, and let the other part drop inside, or grind it out and remove it. And then what you're going to do is with your Dremel, you're going to cut this thing, going to cut the inside of this thing out as you slowly remove the body of it and get close to the threads. And the closer you get to the threads, the more likely it's going to break the tension or free it up. And if that doesn't work, then you're actually going to cut this right down to the top of the aluminum threads, remove everything, and then start peeling those threads out one at a time, because you can sacrifice this, you cannot sacrifice the head. I do not know of any helicoils that can go in here and fix this hole if you screw that up. Well, if I think of anything else, I will put it in the comments section. All right, thank you for tolerating my drama, my monologue so far. I just keep thinking there's something else I need to mention to you. Yeah. All right. Good luck, and ask questions in the comments section. Thanks.